The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Welcome back. So it is 5:30. He's Chris. I'm Elena, in for Alex and Maddie.
Yep, yeah, enjoying some much-needed days off. They absolutely deserve. Now to your 17 homicide tracker this morning. Bakersfield police say a man is dead after a stabbing yesterday in Central Bakersfield. The call came in just after 4:30 p.m. at the Travelodge on Oak Street near Sunset Avenue for reports of two men fighting.
When they got here, they located one Hispanic male adult down in the parking lot at the Travelodge, suffering from what appeared to be a stab wound.
Police say the victim died at the scene. No suspect information is available at this time and no arrests have been made, but officers say they are reaching out to a person of interest. If you know anything about this case, you're encouraged to call Bakersfield Police. That number to call, 327-7111.
And making news around the nation, in New York, police have arrested the man suspected of shooting 10 people on a subway train on Tuesday in Brooklyn. The NYPD says 62-year-old Frank James was stopped on the street after a Crime Stoppers tip. Initially, he was spotted in a McDonald's, but authorities say he actually called police himself and gave his location. Before his arrest, police had zeroed in on James because of a U-Haul key left at the scene of the shooting. James had rented a U-Haul, which was found in Brooklyn hours after the attack, according to police. Now that he is in custody, he is facing federal charges on a terrorism offense.
Your time now is 5:03. Making news around the state. At least 3 people were injured after a shooting near a department store in San Diego. Police responded to reports of a shooting in a shopping center. The space is shared by a Burlington coat store and a Northgate Market. 3 individuals were shot and transported to area hospitals. Several people at the scene who were not shot received care for shock-related treatment. Their conditions are unknown at this time. Witnesses say they were startled by the incident.
I saw there was a group of fighting, and then it was in Burlington outside. There was fighting over, I don't know what it was fighting of, and then sooner the fight, and then I saw the security was walking down, and then he was walking down with the customers because it was a fight, so he didn't want the customer to get injured too. So the sooner the security walked out, they started firing.
What sparked that shooting? Still under investigation. No further information has yet been released.
And a driver was shot last night on the 215 freeway in San Bernardino. The CHP says the shooting happened just before 9 o'clock, just north of Baseline. The driver of a sedan suffered a gunshot wound to the abdomen and was rushed to the hospital. It's unclear if the driver was targeted or hit by a stray bullet somehow. The driver was taken to the hospital in unknown condition. This is the 4th freeway shooting in SoCal freeways in just over a week.
Crews raced to rescue a 68-year-old woman from a car after it went over a cliff at Griffith Park in Los Angeles. Park rangers say they found the woman alert and talking, thankfully, after they reached her car some 300 feet down in the canyon. Crews hoisted her to safety before taking her to the hospital. The extent of her injuries is unknown.
That's scary.
That is terrifying.
California wants the sale of electric vehicles to triple in the next 4 years. The proposal released yesterday by the California Air Resources Board puts the state on a roadmap to achieve Governor Gavin Newsom's goal of phasing out all gas-powered cars by the year 2035. The rules would require 35% of new car sales for model year 2026 to be zero-emission vehicles. The Air Resources Board says emissions spewed from gas-powered cars make up about a quarter of the state's total greenhouse gas emissions, more than any other single source. Their proposal now begins a months-long state review process and will require approval from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Your time now is 5:06. As the Russian invasion of Ukraine heads into its 50th day, President Biden is approving a new $800 million military aid package. The pledge for more equipment comes as Russian forces amass in eastern Ukraine, targeting cities like Mariupol.
The mayor there claims tens of thousands of civilians have been killed since Russia invaded. Bree Jackson has more on this latest round of aid.
Good morning, Chris, Elena. President Biden spoke with President Zelensky for about an hour, and during that call, he pledged more security aid to Ukraine. U.S. officials say that ongoing support is urgently needed as Russian forces grow more frustrated. As the focus of Russia's aggression turns to eastern Ukraine, Ukrainian forces are clearing artillery left after Russian forces retreated and preparing for a massive $800 million military aid package being delivered from the U.S.
We tailored this list specifically to meet the needs that they have asked for with respect to what's going on in eastern Ukraine.
Supplies include helicopters, more Javelin missiles, and for the first time, heavy artillery. The Pentagon says it's working with allies to provide even more resources.
To identify and provide Ukraine with additional capabilities that aren't in our stocks.
The latest round of aid follows a report from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Their findings show Russia committed war crimes. This after President Biden doubled down on calling Russia's actions genocide.
We'll let the lawyers decide internationally whether or not it qualifies, but it sure seems that way to me.
The presidents of Poland and 3 Baltic countries met with President Zelensky in Kyiv Wednesday and say they saw evidence of Russian atrocities. U.S. military experts warn the attacks will only intensify.
Their morale's shaky. Their leadership's even worse. Their logistics aren't working.
Russia's president remains defiant, claiming peace talks have reached a dead end. Ukraine now bracing for a new Russian offensive. Since Russia's invasion started, the U.S. has pledged nearly $2.6 billion in security assistance to Ukraine. In Washington, I'm Bree Jackson for 17 News.
All right, so Bakersfield Congressman Kevin McCarthy was in Belgium yesterday visiting the NATO headquarters and the U.S. Embassy. The House Minority Leader met with ambassadors from around the world. On Twitter, the U.S. Embassy in Brussels said discussions during the visit focused on the importance of transatlantic unity in forcing Russia to end its attack on Ukraine. Belgium is just the latest stop for the House Minority Leader, who is leading a delegation of 7 House Republicans and 2 House Democrats throughout Europe amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The group first visited Poland, where they met with the Polish Prime Minister and Ukrainian refugees, before heading to Romania to talk to U.S. Marines and troops. And now to your 17 follow-up file. Details found in a newly filed search warrant reveal who police think shot a California City man a week ago, but still no arrests have been made. 17's Christian Delano files this report from California City.
Well, it's been a week since 41-year-old Adolfo Jimenez Vega was found shot to death on the driveway of this California City home on Bancroft Court. Newly obtained details found in a search warrant say that a neighbor admitted to shooting the 41-year-old. These are details that the victim's family say they were never made aware of.
Why they'll ask first? Me dijeron que mi hijo había muerto.
All that Antonia Vega, mother of Adolfo Jimenez Vega, was told by investigators on the night of April 6 was that her son was shot dead. A week later, the blood spatter has dried outside of the boarded-up California City home where Adolfo was found dead minutes after 7 p.m.
We knew my brother's past. We know who he was. We're not hiding any of that.
Adolfo was facing homelessness and a drug addiction. He worked odd jobs here and there. His family says days before his death, Adolfo had been assaulted near the home where he died and eventually ended up at the hospital with a broken arm. The night of his death, his mother opened up his home so he can turn his life around. He agreed to, but never came back.
Another one right back to the garage, put the clip in.
So, I mean, how can this not seem too coincidental? That he's telling us the story of somebody trying to shoot him at that time. And then less than 24 hours of him being discharged from the hospital, he gets shot.
Police would not confirm if this assault was related to the shooting. A detective with California City Police did confirm that the DA has asked to further investigate the incident.
I started investigating. I started snooping. I found quote-unquote speculations of Facebook posts saying, oh yeah, you know, people were saying that a man named Adolfo was killed because he was trying to break into a house and the neighbor killed him, shot him. Okay, why, you know, We couldn't even get that from the police.
17 News is not identifying the neighbor who admitted to shooting Adolfo because he is not listed in custody. Details even to the family have been very limited. Police said Adolfo's family has already been in contact with the DA's office through a victim rights advocate, but that aside from the initial visit to Adolfo's mother's home, there has been no other communication.
Again, justice for Adolfo Vega. But we need to know what's going on, why, what happened. I go, even if you can just answer us, do we need to plan for an open or closed casket? Couldn't tell us that either. Nobody will tell us anything. So I'm looking for justice for my brother.
Now, no other arrests have been made in this case, but information from Friday does show that the neighbor was booked on first-degree murder charges, but eventually was released. No details on why he was released or if there will be another arrest made in this incident, as it is still under investigation. For now, reporting in California City, Christian Delano, 17 News.
A high-risk sex offender previously featured on Golden Empire's Most Wanted has been taken into custody. The U.S. Marshals say 27-year-old Jonathan Marr was arrested last week. Officials say Marr had a criminal history that includes burglary, assault to commit rape, and numerous drug-related offenses.
And now to your 17 Court Watch. Inmates waiting their turn in court erupted in anger and disbelief yesterday on hearing that a former teacher accused of sending inappropriate messages to a teen girl would be sentenced to 16 months in prison and has spent enough time already in custody to be released immediately. Multiple inmates swore and yelled, apparently outraged that Kyle Puett didn't receive a lengthier sentence, prompting deputies and the judge to call for order in the court. This is previous video of Puett in court. He taught at Sandrini Elementary School from 2013 to 2017 and pleaded no contest last month to exhibiting harmful matter to a minor, a girl who was 14 at the time. The judge ordered Puett to register as a sex offender and issued a 10-year restraining order barring him from contacting the victim.
Your time now, 5:37. Here at home, attention is on McFarland and the plans the city has for its library. The city announced it's looking into alternative uses for the building. 17's Marco Torres went to McFarland to get some answers.
The McFarland Library, once closed for almost 2 years, now open, but for only 2 days a week for just a few hours. Now, the city is looking into making plans to change the library into the police department, but community members say this is not the right choice. McFarland Library is in the heart of the town. It's used by the community, mostly by children after school. But advocates say the library does more than just loan books.
That library provides programming for all ages. They can get classes on things like employment, citizenship. So the possibilities are endless, and that space is used and loved by the community.
Ariel Dyer helped oversee Shafter Library when it opened back up after closing because of the pandemic. Similarly, county branch libraries all shut down because of COVID, and McFarland Library is no exception. But when Shafter reopened, it was supported by the city instead of the county. Some community members say they want the same thing for the McFarland Library.
Look at alternatives, not the elimination of the library, but alternatives for the library. Where could it go? How would it look? Do we partner with it? All those things.
McFarland Police Chief Kenny Williams says the city doesn't have the resources to support the library like Shafter. He says this is between having a library and public safety. However, library advocates still request the library to be left alone.
Don't sit back. Don't be an idle bystander. The city is asking the county to relinquish the space, right? So the county has to say yes. Don't let the county say yes.
The McFarland Police Chief Williams says that things are still in the preliminary phases and things may not happen until at least 6 months. From McFarland, Marco Torres, 17 News.
All right, happening later today, city officials in Delano want input from residents on how thousands of dollars from a federal grant should be used. City leaders say $179,000 in grant money is available, and the community has a chance to voice where improvements should be made. The funds can be used for direct action to the community, from construction of necessary facilities to rehabbing current ones to even improving access to water and sewer facilities. The first meeting is taking place this evening at 5:30 at the Ellington Community Center. All are welcome, and the Spanish-speaking community is highly encouraged to attend.
Also today, the public is encouraged to log in for the next Bakersfield Rise workshop. The Bakersfield 20 to 45 General Plan Update is an effort to establish a new general plan for the next 20 years, which is essentially a blueprint for the city that includes topics like community growth, housing, transportation, and quality of life. But in order for that plan to be effective, they say you need to get involved. So they're hosting workshops, and the third one is today at 6 p.m., held virtually on Zoom. You can get the link and the passcode to that meeting at bakersfield2045.com.
And with Easter almost upon us, a local church is kicking off celebrations a little early. The New Wine Church opened its 7th annual Road to the Cross art exhibit yesterday, creating an immersive, interactive experience featuring local artwork. Event organizers say the exhibit is meant to use the Holy Week to teach visitors about the gospel.
Every year we have tried to create a unique art experience to where there's nobody preaching and there's nobody explaining it to you in a intellectual way, but rather that you can come and experience it in a subjective way through art.
That's beautiful. You know, art can be worth 1,000 words.
Absolutely.
All right, the exhibit will be open tonight from 5 to 7 and tomorrow from 2 to 6.
A Kern County Sheriff's Office canine was recently recognized as a top dog, and no, that's not just a judgment call.
Up, up. Kennel, say. Kennel, say.
So I can have them on the program.
Hero, who's been with KCSO for more than 6 years, beat out more than 60 other teams in the Murrieta Canine Trials earlier this month. In his last competition before he heads home, Hero took first place.
Hero should be retiring here in the next few months, so he'll be able to spend the rest of his time at home with all of his trophies hanging out by the pool.
What a good boy. Hero took second place in competitions in 2020 and 2021. He is one of 4 KCSO canines trained in both narcotics and patrol. Much of that training is done by KCSO officers over the dog's career, and we just want to wish a big congratulations to Hero and Deputy Bassett. They have done an amazing job, and Hero's about to get some much-deserved rest.
Right, that time by the pool. Good work to both of them.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.